Integrity is the key to a happy life. What's going on, you guys? Tyler here, alone today. I just got a call from Brannon, and it's one of those days where his computer charger isn't working, so he can't keep a charge, which means that you guys are stuck with me today. But I've got some things on my mind. Got some things that I think will be beneficial. I hope will be beneficial to you who are here. Always grateful for people who join us, whether it's live or on YouTube or on any of the other channels. Just want to just take a quick minute and let you know how grateful I am. I'm working on the healing journey myself, which is the course that Brannon and I have created to sort of step into living a wholehearted life and reclaim your life from shame and trauma. And one of the challenges inside that course is to spend some time, a consistent amount of time over the course of a month, and find and express gratitude to the people that matter in your life. And I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, personally say thank you to every single person who listens to us, who supports us, who believes in us, who gets value from us. Uh, Thank you. Thank you for being part of the tribe. Thank you for being part of the team. Thank you for the support that you provide me. It it does make a difference, and it actually really adds to the quality of my life. I love doing this, and the reason I love doing this is because of the people that I get to interact with. So, to every single one of you listeners, first and foremost, I want to say thank you. Uh, Next thing, I just want to mention we're getting a few people that are kind of starting to fill in the cracks where we have some openings. But if you would be interested in coming on the show, we would love to visit with you and speak about your questions. It can be about anything, uh, past trauma, shame, parenting issues, in law issues, uh, struggles with other challenges that you're having in your life, communication things. We'd love to have your questions. Go to therapybrothers.org and hit the button that says come on the show. And you'll be able to just sign right up right there. There's a schedule that shows what available times there are. And we would love to have you come on the show. So, third thing, really quickly, we got another review, and it's just a short, simple, but really good review. And I want to just read it. And it says, it's the title of it is I Think I Get It Now. And it says, I am grateful for your advice, insight, honesty, explanations, patience, Christ like love, and selfless service. You both make a difference. You have both given me strength when I have needed it most. Um, Sorry, it makes me a little bit emotional, but thank you. I love just that honest feedback, and so glad that you get some value out of whatever it is that Brannon and I try to provide for you. And wherever you're at in your journey, whoever wrote this review, I hope that you never let go of hope, because there is always the possibility of growing into a better life, a more wholehearted life. So thank you for your review. Today, I wanted to talk with you a little bit about a topic that's been rolling around in my brain for quite a while. It's always on the top of my brain, but it's been kind of reinforced in a couple of ways recently that I wanted to speak about today, and that I think is going to be pivotal. It's always pivotal to the process of not only recovery, but to the process of just general happiness in life. It's one of the foundational building blocks, one of the core pieces to developing a life that's worth living, a life that's rich and vibrant and full. And that topic is integrity. And we talk about this topic a lot because it's that important. But I wanted to talk a little bit about it, maybe in a slightly different way, share a couple of stories, maybe a couple of quotes, and uh, and try to reinforce what integrity is, and then why it's so important in terms of what we can commit to in order to create the life that we want to be living. So, a couple of things to start with, a couple of definitions of what integrity is. We always talk about integrity. I think most people would include things like, the term probity, which is a deep sense of honesty, Honesty. Brannon uses a definition when a structural term of being able to keep your shape under pressure. And then the two definitions that I wanted to share today are the first one is integrity, the quality of being honest. Sorry, the quality of being honest and having strong moral principles or moral uprightness. And then the second definition, and we'll get into the second definition a little bit further on in our discussion today, that I really like, is the state of being whole and undivided. The state of being whole and undivided. Remember that when we get back to some of the other things we're going to talk about today. Um, but you think about those definitions in a very personal way, having the quality of being honest and having a strong moral principle, and the state of being whole and undivided. And if you were to pause for a minute and think about some of the places in your own life where you might be experiencing some of the most pain, the most struggle, maybe the most suffering, I would suspect that there's a good possibility that something is amiss in you being out of touch with either your own moral principle, making decisions that don't line up with those things, or feeling, and this is what shame does to us, feeling as if we are not whole and that we are divided. That something about us is broken, about us is out of place, something is amiss, something is not in alignment. And those things cause dissonance in us, and they cause us pain and suffering and struggle. And then, of course, when we're in those places, oftentimes because of the stress and the pain that we're in, we often choose things that don't actually really lead us to a more effective or more happy life. So when integrity breaks down, it's likely that our lives start to break down because we make choices that don't align with our moral principles. Uh, so I wanted to share a couple stories, and this is my way of complaining about some things that happen, but also maybe sharing some stories that will bring about some principles. And these are both business interactions that I had. The first one was with a rental car company, and I don't mind saying their name because I would encourage every single one of our listeners not to use this company if you ever rent a car. And it's 6T. A while ago, my wife rented a car, went on a trip with my daughter. I think it was a soccer tournament or something, and they had the car for 3 days. And typically, you go around the car and you sort of mark where the marks already are on the car, and then you're not responsible for those things because you marked where the car marks were on the car before you leave. On this particular occasion, for whatever reason, that part got skipped. Um, and my wife drove the car for 3 days and returned it. And then a few weeks later, we got a notice from 6T that we were responsible for $4,000 of damage on the car in like 5 different places on the car. So 6T went and took advantage of the fact that the step got skipped about marking the places on the car and wanted us to file an insurance claim for every single ding on the car and claim responsibility for the damages to everything on the car. Um, Technically, we didn't do what we were supposed to do by marking that paper. I don't even think she was offered that thing because it was just a step that got skipped, probably by accident. So technically, we didn't do our part, but Rhiannon, my wife, did not actually do the damage on the car, especially 5 different spots all over the car that were already there. So 6T took advantage of a missed step and cashed in, hoping that we would then pay for it all. And then, of course, when we had to pay for it all, we used our insurance to help cover those costs. When we talked to them on the phone, they refused to budge on those things. And you could get into the technicalities of things, but I would suspect that most of you are in the same shoes as us. You would feel like you were taken advantage of. There would be some level of feeling kind of gaslit. There would be some level like just the sickness in your stomach that that somebody knows that they're taking advantage of a system. And in a certain sense, you feel like an object. So my wife, myself, our family, we felt like an object to be used by a company that was in some ways dishonest and lacks integrity. And and so the relational quality that goes on there is that of course now there is never they have at least one family that will never ever use their services again. I'm hoping now that there's 4 or 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 people listening to this, that there's also 10,000 people who will be leery if they ever choose to use that company again. Because I would rather do business with companies that live with integrity. Contrast that with a different experience. And this is a shout out to a great company that I believe operates from a place of integrity, with going to some place like Les Schwab, the tire company. They pride themselves in customer service. They pride themselves in integrity. And my experiences to date have been nothing but positive. They are always going out of their way to say, hey, we may have made the mistake on this thing, or hey, here's a free flat repair, or you know what, we're doing new tires, but your tires still have some tread on them, so we're going to actually give you this credit for that, because we can actually reuse those in some way. They don't have to say all those things, but they go overboard to show outwardly that they're trying to live with integrity. The difference of experience and the difference of relationship is marked. It's completely different. And it's because when you have a relationship with somebody that you can trust that they are holding their shape and that they have a strong moral code, you want to develop a stronger long-term relationship with that place or that company. And the same thing is true in individual relationships, right? Second story, this just happened a couple weeks ago. We decided to take our kids to a play down kind of in Salt Lake. It's a couple hours away. We decided to go and, we got tickets to the Playhouse and then we got a hotel room for the night, just kind of do a little miniature vacation. We booked the hotel through Priceline, but then apparently Priceline then used Booking to do the booking. So Booking.com did the booking. And we paid up front. We showed up at the hotel. The hotel had our name, but they didn't have proof of the payment. And so the hotel just kind of nonchalantly said, well, why don't you just pay for it now and then you can kind of work it out with Booking or Priceline later. And this is obviously something that probably happens quite a bit. And probably what happens a lot of the time is that both Priceline and Booking, whoever did the charging, is going to keep that amount. The person's going to pay on their card, forget about it, or not realize that it didn't happen that way, or maybe even just pay for it, not remembering that they'd paid for it before, and they'll get double charged. And the thing that was really frustrating with this one is that maybe that's a total accident. But then when we go and try to do the customer service, we call Priceline, and Priceline puts us on hold for 15 or 20 minutes. And then the person says, oh, we didn't actually do that because we contracted with Booking. So you need to go to Booking, but they don't have a phone number to just move you straight over to Booking. So they hang up on you and then you have to call Booking.com, and then Booking.com puts you on hold for 30 minutes and then comes on and says that you have to have a certain code that is nowhere in the itinerary that you had, or the confirmation that you had. And if you don't have that code, then they say they have to call you back, and then they never call you back. And not only is that like a horrific business practice, but in my mind, it lacks complete integrity. Basically, it's a battle of attrition. The same thing is true with insurance companies that continually deny, hoping that somebody doesn't have either the gumption or the fight or the desire or the means or the resources to actually get what they've been paying for all along. This is replete. We could go across all sorts of different businesses across our world right now. It's almost become a standard in some places to live with complete lack of integrity. Now, you guys probably have your own stories with this. You probably only have your own experiences with whatever it is that were your companies. You could throw it there if you want in the chat or whatever. It's because it's become so much a way of life for people to focus so much on the bottom line and forget the relational piece, and in doing so sacrifice all sorts of moral principles that most of us would respect or prize when we're working with a particular business, right? Think about your own life when you've been in those kinds of situations. Some of you have maybe been on the phone with an insurance company for 4 hours being denied for something that you already paid for. Some of you guys have probably had a dealing with 60 before, similar to mine. Um, think about it. What is it like for you when you're on the receiving end of that lack of integrity? What is your actual experience? What are the emotions that run through you? What are the thoughts that go through you? What are the things that it leads you to want to do? What are your feelings towards the entity that you're having the dealings with? There's a pretty good chance that there's lack of trust. You, even if you don't do anything outwardly, you know you're never going to go back to that place. And that's some of the stuff that, that's the stuff that then we start to lose trust in all other things, right? You see this all over our world right now. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how does this apply to our personal lives? Think about it, make it a little bit more personal for yourself. Think about your current relationships, the one that you would consider as the closest or the strongest, or the ones that you would like to be the strongest, and do an inventory two ways. Do an inventory two ways. Number one, on yourself first, in the context of my relationship with my spouse or my best friends or, my family members. How do I do at maintaining my own morals, my own moral values, and being congruent in the way that I show up in those relationships? A lot of people listening have probably experienced, some version of a betrayal by their spouse, maybe. Um, what's it like to try to climb out of that hole when the person that you've been trying to cultivate closeness, connection, safety, and trust with is now not operating from what their stated level of moral principles are? What's it like to try to lean back into a relationship without seeing that there's some movement towards that congruency? It makes it difficult to maintain and to grow long-term relationships. So in the short term, a lack of integrity can produce. In the short term, a lack of integrity can kind of keep a secret. You can hide, you can protect yourself, you can avoid being exposed, you can avoid some kind of vulnerability, you can maybe get something that you want, you can manipulate a situation. But integrity is essential for a long term success in life. Integrity is what you use for the long game. Integrity is the principle that you lie on your deathbed knowing that you lived a life seeking to live the principles that you lived and not having to regret the way that you lived your life. That's what integrity is. So I looked up a few things, some kind of outcomes of integrity just to think about, and maybe just want to share a couple of quotes with you too. Excuse me. So a couple quotes here for, and then we'll talk about the actual outcomes and benefits of integrity for a second. A single lie destroys a whole reputation of integrity. The foundation stones for a balanced success are honesty, character, integrity, faith, love, and loyalty. That's Zig Ziglar. One of my favorites. Sometimes you see my t-shirt here. I wear the Bob Marley t-shirt. Bob Marley, the greatness of a man is not how much wealth he acquires, but in his integrity and his ability to affect those around him positively. Confucius, the strength of a nation derives from the integrity of the home. And then, of course, the four agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz. Be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using the word to speak against yourself or gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. Um, think about that again in your own life. The second way that you could ask the question is, in my current relationships, am I surrounding myself with people who are committed to this principle? People make mistakes. People maybe sometimes don't get everything right. That's different. But am I surrounding myself with people who, as a way of life, are committed to integrating this principle into my life? Because if you are, you're actually going to be building a team that can hold the storms of life that are going to come. You're actually going to be building a team that allows every single individual that's in that interaction to be authentic, to be themselves. And that is actually the key linchpin to building trust in relationships. When people come together and can show up in their authenticity, be accepted, not judged, and then merge their value systems, that's actually where connection and safety and trust are built. So, a few thoughts about the outcomes of living an integrous life, being committed to an integrous life. The first one is peace of mind. I remember this, you know, in my own sort of journey and commitment. It's so funny. When I was deep in my own addiction, I prided myself in being, in quotes, an honest man, right? All my business dealings outwardly with other people were overly honest. I prided that myself in that word integrity, all the while keeping secrets from the very people that were the closest to me. And I can't tell you, I can't hardly put into words what that discrepancy did to my inner peace, to the sense of my own being, to my mental and emotional health. I was tormented. I was tormented. I felt like such a hypocrite. And I could put on a happy face. I could pride myself in honesty. I could work hard. I could make friends. I could be happy. I could perform all the ways that I was supposed to perform. But I knew that when I went to bed at night, I was going to bed on an unclear conscience. And that prevented me from sleeping well. That prevented me from being able to think more clearly. I had to spend more time making sure that I covered my tracks in order to make sure my appearances were a certain way. And the torment inside increased the amount of anxiety and depression that I felt. So I already struggle with some level of depression, especially in the wintertime, but it amplified. Every negative mental health problem in my life got worse with the lack of integrity. Because you can't think clearly and it saps your energy when you know you're out of alignment with the life that you were designed to live or that you professed to live. So I quote this all the time in my groups. It's something that I've learned over the years, and I really believe this, that um, there are very few better feelings in the world than the ability to go to bed on a clear conscience. If you want the best night's sleep in the world, make sure that you are in alignment in your integrity, and you'll sleep better at night because there will be an inner peace that is emanating from you outward into the world. The partner that you're with will feel that. People always ask, like, how do I know if they're being honest with me? How do I know this or that? And yeah, there's all these tangible things you can go do, but the inner commitment. One of my favorite quotes is hanging on my wall at home. It says, "A man without decision of character can never be said to belong to himself. He belongs to whatever can make captive of him." And the way I read that is that if I don't wake up in the morning and decide with intention to live according to the moral principles and the code that I believe in and that I believe God has like called me to, I will become a captive to something else. Whatever comes along is going to grab me because I don't have the principles to fall back on that I've already chosen to live. Integrity, as I said earlier, is a long-term game. If you want your relationships to last, you have to show up in those relationships with integrity. Some people seem to manage it. They lie for 20, 30, 40 years. And what they don't realize is that they sapped the life out of a relationship because they kept the relationship. They didn't get rejected, but they missed out on the depths, the richness, the closeness, the intimacy that only a long-term relationship of integrity can produce. In essence, they go through their whole life wearing a mask, showing up as an imposter and as a poser, trying to not get rejected and never actually even showing who they really are. So if you want to play the long game, if you want to have a 50th anniversary, if you want to have if you want to have your partner holding your hand when you're 75, as you're getting ready to pass on to the next life and they're looking you in the eye and say they're proud to be your spouse, the only pathway there is through integrity. Third, increased self-esteem. There's an inner confidence that is developed when you know you have a moral value system and you're in alignment with that in the way that you live your life and make your choices. You like yourself better. It's easier to look yourself in the mirror and look yourself in the eye and like what you see. It's easier to take that energy after you look yourself in the mirror and look yourself in the eye and like what you see and take that energy out into the world and do something good with it. You become a force for good in the world when you live with integrity. So, in order to do that, you have to understand what your values are. It takes time to actually be curious and intentional with what your values are. To know yourself, come to know yourself. What are the values that are most important to you? And then commit yourself to mastering those principles. Next one, kind of alluded to this already, but it's stronger relationships. You know, I'm fortunate enough that I have some people in my life now. It's come with a lot of work and a lot of sifting and a lot of personal work to actually be someone who can be this for somebody and not just take it from somebody. But I'm fortunate. I've got a good team. I've got my wife and I've got, you know, obviously my brothers, siblings, and I have some really good best friends. And I, you know, Brene Brown said, you know, any of us can consider ourselves fortunate if we have 2 or 3 people in our inner circle at any given time. The only way someone gets into the inner circle is through being able to trust them. And trust comes through integrity. I surround myself with people that I know are committed to living with integrity and the safety that that provides to my life. It's like being on a tightrope that life is. You know, life has all sorts of risks, struggles, challenges, problems. That's how we grow. But when you have a solid team, that's like the safety net when you fall off the tightrope. And it feels so good. You can actually go into your life and take more risks when you know you have a team to fall back on. And the way that you know you have a team that'll be there is because of the integrity that they show up with in their lives and in their relationship with you. And so you're going to have a deeper sense of connection, a deeper sense of intimacy, a deeper sense of satisfaction, a deeper sense of safety. And that safety then allows you to then go into the world and take the risks that you need to live the life that you were designed for and learn the lessons that you need to learn. Having a team is pivotal, and at the core of that team is integrity. Trust goes along with that, goes without saying. Improved mental health, I already spoke those things. These are things that have been looked at and researched with living with integrity. Here's another one. Sense of purpose. And here's where I think this kind of comes in. If you look at those 2 definitions of integrity, the first definition, again, being the quality of being honest and having a strong moral principle. And then the second one, the state of being whole and undivided. If I'm committed, if I understand what my principles are, my core moral principles are, and if I'm living a life that, you know, most of us can't be fully congruent, but if I'm over here with what I profess to be my moral code and I live way over here and I'm not overlapping with what my moral code is, that dissonance is going to cause confusion, it's going to cause mental health problems, it's going to cause stress, anxiety, depression. But the more that I start to fuse those things, I am now living in alignment with the life that God designed me for. So I'm going to come to understand myself more. And as I live that self more and grow in my confidence, I'm going to come to understand what my purpose is in life. We talk about this in recovery all the time. You know, when you're recovering your heart from shame, trauma, trying to heal from whatever it is that's made you lose your sense of confidence, get the wind knocked out of you emotionally or whatever, that one of the overall goals is to actually sort of systematically peel back the layers that have formed of self protection, the lies, the shame, and find at the root really the names that God has already made for you and to learn to accept those names. And when you're living a life that is seeking your values and then trying to live in alignment with those things, you will actually be uncovering those names. And those names will sound different. You know, I'm Tyler, but there might be names that are things like, you know, some of my names are teacher, guide, first responder, helper, lover, father. And if you look at all those names that I believe I've received from my higher power, all of those things will track themselves back to morals and principles that I believe strongly in, that I feel called to. So you'll actually align yourself with your life purpose if you're committed to this single thing of what we call integrity. Excuse me. The next one is decision making. And you think about this, like decision making takes willpower, and willpower takes brain power, and brain power takes glucose. And the research actually shows that we're born, I mean, we're not born, we wake up every morning with a certain level of finite resource that is the glucose in our brain that helps feed our willpower. And every decision that we make, what time we get out of bed. So, you know, if you're the kind of person who hits the snooze button, you are already sapping your willpower before you get out of bed in the morning because every decision takes some of your willpower. So, if you want to mainstream your life and save your willpower for the things that matter, get in good, healthy habits a little bit at a time of having good morning routines. Don't make a lot of decisions on what you're going to eat in the morning or what clothes you need to put on in the morning. This is my cop out and why I say I wear shorts and a t-shirt every day. Like I don't have to think about what I put on, so I can put my willpower somewhere else. Right? My wife would disagree with me. She thinks I should dress differently for work. Uh, but that's the idea is every decision that I make takes some part of my willpower throughout the day. And I can actually mainstream a lot of my decision making if I'm already tied to the morals and principles that I live. I'm going to go throughout my day every single day and I'm going to be presented with certain opportunities. An opportunity to be a little bit dishonest here. Maybe I ding somebody's car in the parking lot on accident at Walmart. Um, if I already know what my moral code says and I'm in alignment with that moral code, I don't even have to make the decision. I'm either going to wait there for the person to come out or I'm going to write a note with my phone number on it that says, hey, sorry, I dinged your car. The decision is already made. The willpower is saved. I can go put that to something else. If I'm working on overcoming an addiction to pornography and I've committed to myself that I'm going to be honest no matter what, I don't have to think about what I'm going to do if I have a relapse. The decision has already been made because I'm already connected to the sense of morals that I know that I want to live in order to have a happy life. So I don't have to sit and think and worry for 3, 4, 5 days, 7 days, 12 days, let it eat me alive, sap my willpower, make me more depressed. The decision has already been made because I'm already tied to my morals and values. So there's something to merit being in touch with what your morals and values are and then strengthening those things into habit because decisions will already be made for you throughout the day. You'll be a faster processor, you'll be more decisive, and you'll be more in alignment with who you are and what your values are. And you'll be more likely be making better decisions as a result. The last one is, and this kind of goes back to the stories I told with the companies that I had some some experience with, reputation and reliability. What is your reputation? There's those country songs. There's an old country song. It's. I think the title of it is "It's My Last Name," It talks about a guy, going through life, and there's certain things that he can't sacrifice because it's tied to his last name. I remember being on my own church mission. I was serving in Baltimore, Maryland when I was 19 to 21 years old. And I was living right in the inner city, and I was pretty young. I was early on. I was like 4 or 5 months into my 2 year service. And I I started to kind of sacrifice some of my own, integrity. I decided to start bending a few of the rules. Decided to start having a little bit more fun than maybe I should, leaving the area that I was assigned to. I remember one time we went down, it was the very first of all of the ESPN zones. So people who know what they are, it's like a big restaurant. And then on the other side they have um on the other side they had like these all these virtual reality games, sports games, everything. And it was their VIP opening, and it happened to be just a couple miles outside of where I was supposed to stay in my area to do my church service, to be helping teach people the gospel of Christ. And me and my companion that I was with, we decided to break the rules and went down to the ESPN zone and tried to get in on VIP night. We walked in and they turned us away instantly when they saw us and our name tags. And the guy I was with, was joking with them, and he's like, "You wouldn't turn down a man of God, would you?" And they laughed at us. And then they actually went and got the manager, and then they pulled us in and let us go into VIP. And we spent most of the day eating the food at ESPN Zone and then playing all of the virtual video games. Now, I had signed up to do something different, and by doing that, I was blatantly breaking the rules. Not a big deal, like kids are going to be kids. I was a 19-year-old kid, but I had signed up for something different, and I had committed to something different, and I committed to a different set of rules than the ones I was currently living. And it was a few days later, my mission president, the person who's in charge of all the missionaries, so this poor old guy, he's in charge of like 300, 19 to 21 year olds. Think about that job. Um, he comes down to do interviews once a month, and he sits down in my interview, and word obviously must have gotten back, or maybe someone got pictures or something. I don't know. And he sat down and he kind of rubbed his face for a second. He said, "So how's the work going?" And, I'm sitting there kind of just putting on the front, like, "Oh, yeah, it's really good, President. Like, we're teaching these people and doing this thing." And we were doing some good hard work, but we were messing around a little bit. And then he sat there and he's like, I've heard rumors of you doing a few things, this and this and this." He listed off like three, four, five things. And that they were against what I had committed to do. They were outside the bounds of what I had committed to. And I kind of turned red and I kind of got embarrassed and I kind of put my head down. And then he got pretty impassioned, and he waited for me to look up at him, and he looked me right in the face, and he made eye contact with me, and he held my gaze. And he happened to also be really good friends with my grandfather, the one that you guys hear me talk about on the podcast all the time. And he happened to be really good friends with my grandfather. And he used that. And he said, it was basically that country song. He said, "Elder Patrick," he said, "I've come to love you. I've come to value what you bring here. No one dislikes you. Everybody loves you. You generally work hard, but what you're doing right now is not something that your grandfather would approve of. And you are not upholding your family name by what you're doing right now." And then he said, "I want to know right now, I want a commitment from you right now. You're either going to be with me or you're going to be against me." And of course, there was like this piercing thing that went all the way down to my soul because I already knew what I was doing was outside the bounds of what I had committed to. Yeah, I was out having fun. It was a good time. And, we still worked hard, but I was breaking my integrity. And when he had that pointed out to me and he tied that to this idea of reputation, like I'm proud of where I come from. I'm proud of my life experiences. I hate to say it, but I'm proud of some of the hell that I've been through and that I put my family through. But I'm proud of the lessons that are learned. I'm proud of the life that's lived. I want generations from now when somebody mentions the last name Patrick, I want it to ring with a good feeling in people. Like, they come from a good place. I want to be that for my ancestors, and I want my children and my grandchildren to be that for me. Reputation, reputation. And that is built consistently through time by following what the truth is of your morals and your principles. So hopefully this is helpful to you guys. I'd ask you to challenge yourselves to think about that in your own lives. Ask yourselves and do an inventory, not a shameful one. Is there something in my life that I'm currently engaged in that does not actually align with my morals and my values? And when you sit with that, and if you have something rise to the surface, ask yourself what the cost is to you right now. Ask yourself what the price is that you're paying by choosing to keep that alive in your life. And then ask yourself what the benefit could be if you were to surrender that. If you were to give yourself over a little bit more to the life that you know God designed you for, to the life that'll let you go to bed on a clear conscience. And if you make that commitment, it will be difficult. You'll be faced with things that will challenge your integrity. But if you learn to stick to your integrity, your life will increase. Your life will become more colorful, more vibrant, more whole, more undivided. And all of us want to be whole and undivided. So thank you guys. Hopefully this is meaningful to you or somebody. If this is valuable to you, or if you know somebody who could benefit from this, please share it. If you guys get value out of what Brannon and I are doing to produce here, there's certain ways that you can help at no cost. Subscribe to the channel, listen to us, share these things with other people. If they're meaningful to you, it allows us to get in front of more people and make a bigger difference in the world. And again, so grateful to have you on my team. And until next time, keep on keeping on.